Okay, hello and welcome. We're going to be working on this painting today. So I have some brushes set out. I have a couple different size flat brushes. I have a big Papa going down. You guys know my deal. I have Mama brush, that's the next size down. I have a big brother, a little brother, and a baby. Now, it is okay if you don't have all these brushes. Really, what you want is at least a few different sizes. So if you have something like those two, you're really set. And then colors, I have a red out, I have a white out, I have a cobalt blue. Basically, my red, my white, and my blue are going to make all these beautiful purpley colors. If you have purple, you don't need all these other colors. You can just go with the purple and the red, or purple instead of the red. I do have blue because I have some light blues in the background there. Then I have a dark green, a yellow. If you have a light green, you can get a lighter green in there too. You don't need it. Then I also have some browns for the tree trunk. Okay, we're going to start with that background. So I'm going to take the biggest brush I have. I just pulled mine out of water, but make sure it's wet. And I'm going to start with a light blue. So I'm going to pull my blue and white together. And I'm just going to start getting some strokes across my canvas with my light blue. Now, without cleaning my brush off, I'm going to actually change that up and pick up a little bit of red in there and kind of make it a pink tone. And I'm going to come in and get some strokes in here too. Now, if you like pink, you can make it really pink. That's a little too pink for me, so I'm going to go back in with some white and soften it. Right now, I'm just focusing on getting that top portion of my canvas, so I'm not going very far down with these colors yet. I'll come down and get that ground later. So I've softened that up a little bit. I'm going to soften it up even more. I'm going to come in and get some more of these kind of blue tones back into. I lost some of those. Now I also want to get some of this fluorescent green in. So I'm going to clean off my brush and I'm going to mix my green, white, yellow, or if you have a light green and white. Quite a bit of this color, so I'm going to come in with quite a bit of that tone. I think mine's a little too light, so I might darken it up some too. Okay, so I'm going to take my time getting this whole background filled in. You guys take your time too. If you like those light greens a little bit better, fill in with more of those light greens. If you like the light blues a little bit more, you can fill in with the light blues. Doesn't really matter. We just want a nice combination of colors back here. So I've switched back up to that light blue. I don't know if I'm in the frame. I'm hoping that. I'm hoping you guys can just see the painting. And I'm just going to keep going in and getting that background. Okay, so now I got that whole background in the top done. I'm going to come in and get this bottom portion. And now if you look at the one that's over there, that bottom portion has a lot of greens in it. A little bit of the lilacs and other tones are going to come back in after I get everything. So I'm going to go with those greens, and I'm going to make a few different shades of greens for that bottom. And come in and get this on my canvas now. I'm still using that big Papa brush. Now I'm just going back and forth, nice big strokes. I'm going to switch it up in just a second here in the tone that I'm getting. So I have some greens with some yellowies in there, but I also am going to add some blues in there too, and then soften some of that up. So everything in this background is really just kind of soft in color, very pastel-y, I would say. So I'm picking up some of those blues now, getting those in with my greens, and a little bit more white. Now this painting does take quite a bit of white to make all these tones, so if you do have other colors, go with the colors you have. Don't make all these different shades if you have them. I'm going to keep going, and you see how I'm just kind of brushing these colors in just like I did that sky and switching it up every now and again. I'm going to keep going like this for this whole background. I'm going to do some really soft greens, some deeper greens, some of these blue-green tones. Okay, so I just went in and finished that whole background down here. Now it's time to get that tree in place. And again, if you look up, my tree has this big trunk. Trees come down like at a triangle shape and get thinner as you go up. And then I have a branch that goes all the way across that way. I have a little one that comes up. I have some others that peek through the tops of those wisteria. So I'm going to get my brown on my plate and start getting some of those in. Now I'm working pretty fast here and everything's wet. You can give yours a little bit more time to dry if you want. I don't mind this on this one because it just gives it this nice soft watery color or pastel-y feel in the background. Okay, I just moved down in brush size. I'm getting a little bit smaller one, and like I said, that tree comes up kind of at a triangle shape. I know I have a branch that comes off this way. Curves up. Now, I am glad my son picked this one because this really does feel like a pretty spring feeling painting. And I don't know about you guys, but being stuck inside, I wish we didn't have so much rain today. It would have been nice to have a nice spring day today. Okay, so now I'm going to keep going. I think I have one that comes off somewhere here. Now, my brush is pretty well loved. It's got this big spot there that it's pulling apart. So if I switch down, if you're wondering why I switched down, it's just because this brush is one that's been pretty well loved and I'm not enjoying painting with it right now. It's just not working very well at getting nice finer lines. Now, one of the things with trees is they don't really have to have straight lines. So I'm making nice curved lines here. I'm getting rid of that brush. I think all of these I left sitting in water one time and they all just have a little bit of that lip to them, which isn't exactly what I want when I'm painting, when I'm trying to get nice branches in here. Okay, so you can see I'm picking up a little bit of my background. It wasn't totally dry. I don't care. I'm going to cover most of this stuff up, so it doesn't really matter that much. I'm just trying to figure out where I want these little peekaboos coming through that you can see on the original. And I think I'm going to have another branch coming somewhere down in here. Now, if you liked it like this, you could leave your painting like this or add fewer details, and if you really like all this stuff coming through. Again, I'm not worrying about all this yet. This is not the important stuff for me. This is just kind of filling in. So I'm going to come in and fill in my tree trunk. I'm going to keep doing this while I put you guys on pause. You guys can fill in yours. I'm not doing a really thick layer of paint yet. I will thicken it up a little bit on the trunk later, but just getting a nice thin layer of paint on all those branches. Okay, so I went ahead and filled in all of that with a very thin layer of paint. Now I'm going to come back and see how I have these little streaky lines coming up. So let's see if I can zoom in a little bit on it. I have these colors streaking up. There's some darker ones that are supposed to look like trees in the background. I'll add those ones in the end, but all these other ones in between here are some little pinks and purples brush stroked up into that tree trunk. I don't need to go all the way up. I do have some that are up in the top part of the tree that you can see there. I'll get those ones in afterwards when I get these trunk ones that look like tree trunks in the background. But I'm going to do that while this brown dries, so I'm not making a mess of that when I go in with my purples that are going to be coming down. And then afterwards, I'll bounce down to this ground, get all that stuff coming down. You really want to make sure you're working, letting things dry. I'm going really quickly here today, but you guys have time to take your time on this. So I'm letting all this dry. I'm going to get those streaks in the background. I'm going to come get all that after everything is dry up there. So I'll probably move back down to the ground. So I'm going to get back in position here so you guys can see what I'm doing. Now, those colors that I have streaked up are those same colors that I've used for the background already. So I'm going to start first with one that I didn't mix yet, which is my light purpley color. And I am going to quickly clean off my brush that I used for my tree trunk. It had a lot of brown in it. I'm going to get two different size brushes out. It doesn't really matter, but you want a bigger one and a smaller one. And I'm going to make a lilac purple now. So in order to make my lilac purple, if you had one, great, use it. If not, I'm mixing my red, blue, and white. And if you like it a little more pink, add more red. If you like it a little bit more true lilac-y tone or a little bit bluer, add more blue. This is all kind of personal preference. I tend to like more blue, but when I look at this image, I think I did the original with a little bit more pink. I think I did this one for a Mother's Day painting. Okay, so now I just tested it out to see what my color was. That's not quite deep enough. I want more tone to it, so I'm going to make it a little less pastel-y, a little bit more color to it. I want to see these streaks as I'm going in. So now I'm just going to quickly pull some strokes up. You can have some true purples in there if you really like the true purple, so it'd just be the blue and I'm going on both sides of the tree, the blue and the red to make a truer purple. And here you could start either at the land and pull up, or you can go from the sky down. Again, I don't need to worry about this area. If I want to get a few in these open areas, I can, but I don't need to worry about that. I'm using both the chiseled edge of the brush and the flat edge of the brush, so I'm getting some different strokes. I'm going to change up the colors, and I'm really just trying to fill in a lot of this background area, give it some color. I can go in, if you really liked those light greens, I can go in with some of those light greens here too. Now, I'm not really cleaning my brush off. I should probably be cleaning my brush off in between. I'd recommend cleaning your brush off a little bit better. Going in with some of those colors that you like. I have that blue-green tone that I really liked, so I'm going to pick up some of that and do a few strokes. And as you can see, I'm just doing this all the way across. I'll go all the way across, all the way under these branches, maybe a few strokes up here. Again, those aren't going to really show because I'm going to get the wisteria in and then I'm going to add some on top of it. But if you want to make sure you get some of those in, you can. I'm going to turn off the video in a second here, keep working, and then I'll turn it back on when I get this part done so you can see how that looks, and we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so I got all those different strokes going up and down in the background. I did a few up in between the trees, but not that many. Really, those aren't going to show. So now you can see how those are on here. You see all those strokes coming up. I'm going to come down and do these little dashes and change up some of the colors on the bottom now. So I have dashes of the purple tones, some pure purples, some red and blue purples, or more red or more blue purples, some lilac-ies. I actually have a few green ones in too, and then I have bigger strokes of those purples coming across my grass too. So I'm going to play with that, see if I can find a nice balance in there. Then I'm going to come in and start getting some of those wisteria flowers coming down. So let's start on this base, and I'm going to do the same thing. I have kids running around the house, they're making quite a bit of noise, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start this space here and get those dashes in. I'm going to use my little brush, and I just want to make sure that my dashes aren't all identical in size. So when I am coming in, again, I'm going to make those different shades of purples, some dark, some light, some more blue, and I'm really just coming in and making a bunch of dashes. And see how some are really long? I could do some super long. I might do one at the base of the tree to cover up where it meets. I can do a few that even go up into the sky a little bit. Now just play around with this, see where you feel comfortable. If you're starting to feel like you're making a mess, stop. Take a break, step back. You guys have a lot of time here. Take your time with this. I'm going to keep going. I have all pretty much the same color right now, so I'm going to change it up a little bit. I said we want some lighter, some darker, and you can see I'm going up into that sky a little bit too, so I don't have a solid line there anymore. I really want to cover that solid line up. I might want some that are more blue still. We can always come back and add more, so don't worry if you're thinking, I don't know that I have this, maybe I don't. Just start, take it slow. Remember to vary the size of those dashes. Some can be really small. Change up the colors of those dashes. We're going to fill in, it's supposed to look like falling petals on that ground. Like I said, we're going to have some areas that are bigger, thicker in purples. I'm going to keep working on this, then I'll show it to you again. We'll work on the next part then together. Okay, so I came in and got a bunch of that stuff going on the ground down here. Now it's time for me to start dealing with some of that wisteria. Now, my most important thing when I'm dealing with this wisteria, oops, sorry, wiggling my camera a little bit too much here. I'm trying to zoom in. My most important thing is I want different textures in there, different colors. I want to not have it all the same. I want some of that background peeking through too in areas. So I'm going to kind of make these kind of cone-like shapes dripping down on here. I'm going to show you a few. I'm going to start at the top, filling in, and then decide where I want those cone shapes. I'm going to bounce back and forth a little bit, leaving parts of branches, parts of sky coming through. This is all kind of personal preference. So when I said I was going to leave cones, I'm going to decide that I want, and I'm just kind of twisting and dabbing. So when I'm putting this on, I'm twisting and dabbing, so not every single little dot that I do, every single movement that I do looks exactly the same. If you like a softer look, you can make these softer. If you like them a little bit more vibrant in color, you can make them a little bit more vibrant. I'm kind of going a little bright on the color right now because I want you to really see the color as I'm laying it down. I'm going to soften up some of these tones. These can be ones that I put on top once I get it in place, but I want you to see what I'm doing here. So again, kind of making these cone shapes down here. Now, I'm using a little brush. I'm going to switch up to a big brush and continue to get these kind of cone shapes. And see how mine have a little bit of movement. There's twists in them. They can be perfectly straight down, or they can have some movement to them. That's going to be really what you like here. And I'm going to go across, get these down all in here, those little kind of cone shapes where I want them. And you can have them dripping even further down if you like, or not quite as far. Now I'm also going to switch up brushes because I said I don't want to be using my little teeny tiny brush the whole time. Some of these can have a little bit more texture to them, and they do go right over everything in their path. So a lot of it is just going to be dabbing and pulling. I'm going to have purples in there, the lilacs, for that background, really light tones, and then as I get to detail, I'll come in and do what I was doing here where it's a little bit more vibrant. But I do want different shades in there, so you can have them pink if you like them, you can have them purple. I'm going to keep going and filling these in. Again, you remember you want that background coming through too. So you can see I'm starting to make that whole cone shape now, turning that all into one big dripping area. We'll add some detail on top of it, but I'm going to work through and get these all kind of in I'm dabbing and turning still with that brush. I can get some finer details if I like, or I can leave it nice and big and open like this. I have some of that sky peeking through. It's kind of important to make sure you leave some of that sky peeking through. It really is going to be up to you. Take your time, take some steps back, see how much of the sky is peeking through, if it looks good to you, or if you want less of it. You decide. I like my sky, so I might leave a little bit more on this one. That's really personal preference. So I'm going to keep going. I'm going to get these ones filled in now. I'm going to, again, pause and work so that then I can get these done and show you our next steps. Really focusing on getting kind of these different things hanging all throughout my tree area. Oops. And I had that in the wrong spot, so there. Now you can see what I was doing, all those drips coming down, those triangle shapes that I'm doing. I'm going to keep doing them across, and then as I bring it up, I'm bringing them over the branches, but I will have little bits of branch peeking through here and there just along with that sky. Okay, so now I've got all those big drips in. I want to come in with a little bit more of the dark tones and just highlight some of these little ones so that they stand out. Then I'm going to come in and add those branches that I told you, those darker tree trunks, some of those stripes in front of everything. If you've lost too much of your sky, you might want to add some of that sky back through. Really, at this point, it's going to be looking around, seeing where you want to add details. I do need to add some texture to my tree trunk, but that will come in just a second. So I'm going to come in with some pure purples and my little brush and just make some more controlled little twists like I was doing in the beginning there when I first was showing you how these were. So a little bit more of a pure color, not so much white in it. And I'm just going to give some of these some shape again, so that just certain areas stand out, really highlighting those individual ones. So you can see how I'm doing that here, really bringing that one out. Maybe I want to bring this one out a little bit. And this is going to take just stepping back and seeing. It might also be that you need a little bit lighter area. Maybe I've gone too dark in one area, so I need to get some more light back in there. And play around with what you need for yours. Okay, so I'm going in, I'm going to break up some of this area still. And I didn't quite make enough of my dark purple, so it's just taking me a second longer because I need to make another batch. And again, see how I'm just highlighting a few. And this time I went with a really bright, reddy purple. If you like that more blue purple, you can do it. Also, if you don't want purple, if you wanted to do these in other colors, you can. They don't need to be Wisteria. This was just what I felt like creating when I did this one. But you can make these whatever color you want. They'd look really pretty if you did yellows, or even just some whites in there could work. So think about what you feel like doing. Again, if you don't have all the supplies, you don't have all the colors, change it up. It's the idea that we're going for. And you can use this technique for a lot of different paintings. Okay, so I'm going to add a few more in here, not too many, because this isn't quite the fun part, watching me just dab paint. Okay, so now you can see I've kind of broken it up in a few other areas. Really defined where those are dripping down. So they look a little bit less like blobs, a little bit more like some type of detailed mark. Okay, so I've come in and done that. Now I want to get some of these strokes that I was telling you are in front of everything. And I have some of my light greens, some of my dark greens. I have those tree trunks in the background. Because this part's so wet, I'm going to come in and get those trunks that I said were in the background. And for me, I did those with a little bit of that brown mixed with some black and water. I also had a little bit of probably white still in my brush. It looks like they're a little bit pastel-y too, so not overpowering. And now here, because we're getting close to the end, I recommend going really light-handed. You can always make things darker, so if you're going into the black, really just a tiny pinprick of it. So I've mixed up my tone, and I'm going to come bring some more tree trunks in. And this is really just personal preference. I want one maybe in here. Again, I'm using both the chiseled edge and the flat edge of my brush. I think I went a little too pastel-y, so I'm going to come back in with a little more color. And I'm trying to vary these in size too. I don't want them all exactly the same size. So that might take a little bit of time to figure out what brush you want to use on those. Again, maybe you don't want these. I just thought it needed another layer in here, so I wanted to get something else in here. You could even take some of those deep purples and mix it in. Maybe they're going to be a deep purpley brown. So see how I'm just filling that in? It just really gives it the idea that maybe we're in a forest or there's more going on than just what we're seeing in the front here. I can drag these all the way up into those flowers. I'm going straight down to my ground and into my ground. I'll add some more dashes in my ground in just a second to refine anything that I went over that I didn't want to. All those in the background. Oops. There we go. And if you look here, we have a couple more of these colors coming back through. And you can see they stretch all the way up. They're not full from the ground up, but there's little strokes that come in through there. I'm going to start with my lime greens. I have a blue green. I'm just going to see and play around with what tones I could do whites, but just really getting that background built up. So let's see if I can zoom out again. There we go. I'm working on getting some of the strokes. I'm going to start with the lime greens first. That was my green, my yellow, my white. And I'm just literally going to do quick dashes. Some can come all the way down. Some can just be streaked in the sky. It's really up to you where you want these. If you like everything you have, don't add these. I just thought it needed one more dimension after I got all these Wisteria in there. I felt like it was missing something, so I went back and did these. So you can see I'm going up and down, really quick strokes, not a lot of paint on my brush, just breaking up any solid areas that I thought maybe had too much going on. I'm going to make some of that blue-green color. That's just blue and green. You can make it a little bit more pastel if you want by adding some white, so softening that tone a little bit. I'm going to go and see how mine is. I didn't clean my brush off, so I don't know if it still has some of that lime green in it. If it does, it should be soft enough. If not, I'll come back in. So it was pretty soft. I don't mind that one. I told you I had that open spot that I didn't really like. I'm bringing a few more of these down again because I really think I just filled in a little too much up here. You can hear me mixing my colors just to get them the right way. And here again, just take your time, take a step back, see what you think of yours. It might not need any of this. You might like it just the way it is, and that's perfectly fine. Don't add something if you don't like it. This is your painting. Create it the way you like. So I'm going to come back in and do a few more here. to some of those lime green ones. Okay. You can see I'm pulling up and down. Now this one I've noticed I have a little bit more tree coming through here. I don't mind it, but if you do, this would be the point to go back in and cover up anything that you think is showing a little too much, not enough. So if I said right here I had a little too much coming through, I could thicken that one up. Just make sure you have a clean brush when you're doing this. I had a little bit of brown in my brush, but that's okay. So come back through, fix anything up that you need to fix up. So I can tuck more branches in here if I want, or more of these strokes. I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to do a couple more strokes coming down. This time I'm going to do them in my light purple. That's just going to help blend everything together. So making my lilac-y purple again. Now each time I'm mixing this color I get a little bit different shade. I'm not minding that. It is perfectly fine to have a few different shades in here. So now I'm just going to take that and drag a few of those strokes down too. It's just going to help blend all those different areas. You could do white if you wanted in this. I might be leaning in front of the camera here. Okay, now while I have that purple all mixed up, I'm going to come back. Remember I said if you had done anything down here and needed to add some more dashes in, you could. So I want to add a few more dashes in down here now. Oops, I got my soda in the frame. I shouldn't have that in the frame. So anything you need to blend, anything more you want to add here, go right ahead. I'm going to call this good with these dashes. Again, you take your time, you add a little more detail. Now I'm going to add some texture to my tree trunk. So I want you to see that tree trunk. I'm going to zoom in. My tree trunk here, if you can see that, has some different textures going on. It has some arched lines and some whites, some of those purples, some brown and black, but just to give it texture, it has all these, there's my hand, all those arches coming through the branches. I'm going to get some of those in. Again, some are in green, some are in white, some are in a brown and black. I'm going to use my smallest brush to do that, and then that's it. This painting's done. So let's come in and get that texture on our tree trunk. Zoom back out. I'm going to start with the white so that you can see what I'm doing here. I'm coming in and really just following the trunk of my tree and getting these arch shapes in there. And I can do that anywhere I see open tree that I want to get a little bit more texture in. I'm going to do some in my bright green that I made. I'm going to do some, like I said before, in a brown and a black color. So get a few strokes like that in this tone as well. Take your time where you're arching these in. If I wanted, I could make a little bit of a red-brown even with my red and brown, just changing up that trunk color. So let's see what that color looks like. I kind of like that color too. Now that it's dry, I can actually go into my browns too, and you'll see the texture of that brown popping through. And here again, this is personal preference. If you're sitting here playing with it and like, oh, I don't like any of this, don't do these strokes. You don't have to. I just thought it gave a little bit more dimension to this tree, getting something in here. Now I'm moving that paint around because I got that white first so that you could see it, and I didn't like so much white in there. So I'm just moving it around, playing with it. And again, anywhere you have a little peekaboo, you can add some texture if you want. Maybe I want it in my greens coming through just to add some brightness up there. You make the call on what you want to add there. I think I'm going to let this be. I'm going to show you the original again so you guys can see what we were working with and what we got today. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully you guys are finding time to do fun activities like this right now. Let me know what you think. If you have any questions, comments, go ahead and shoot those my direction. Enjoy. I'm going to zoom in and let you guys see these paintings now.